Hope you know it'll work. Okay. L'chaim, Good Yontif. Today is a very, very auspicious day. It's a happy day for many, many reasons. And it's an opportune day. There's a lot of abilities that we have in preparation for Rosh Hashanah and in general for brachos, and tremendous keiches, strengths that we have on this day. Firstly, it's the birth of the Baal Shem Tov, born in 1698. And we know the Baal Shem Tov brought to the world the teachings of Chasidus, and founded Chasidus HaKlalis, the general Chasidus, and everything that it brought, or rather revealed within Yiddishkeit, the heart and the soul and the joy that's involved in it, and paving the way for Chasidus on even a deeper level when we come to the Chasidus Chabad. In addition, the Baal Shem Tov had a very special teacher, the name of Achia Shiloini, and he revealed himself to the Baal Shem Tov. First time he met him was also on Chai Elul. It wasn't a coincidence. There's something special about this day. And he, of course, taught the Baal Shem Tov many secrets of the Torah, many of the teachings and ways of Chasidus, and later, of course, pushed him to go out of the stage of hiding, which for a very long time the Baal Shem Tov was doing all of his work, but in secret. Nobody knew the extent of who he was. He was involved with a group of other underground tzaddikim, hidden tzaddikim. They did tremendous stuff, but no one knew. It was hidden to go around and uplift Yidden, to come to communities, especially at a time when the popular thing was to come and speak very negatively or harshly or use very strict terms to try to inspire. They had Magidim that would come around. They would travel from town to town, and they would come to a city, especially a smaller place that didn't have their own rabbi, or even if they did, people get tired of the rabbi after a while. And they're always happy to hear a traveling new face, a guest. And they would get up and they would inspire them. But how would they inspire? What would they use? What was the method or the trick to inspire the community? Was to speak about the terrible impact of their behavior and to tell them that because you're doing things wrong, especially in those times, there were a lot of very, very simple villagers who, because of their financial situation, they had to bring their kids to work with them at a very young age just to literally survive. So they didn't have proper education. They didn't know much. And he would chastise them, and these Magidim would get up and really scream at them and give them a hard time for this type of behavior and tell them how the consequences are huge and Gehenna is not hot enough for them, and if they can only imagine. And the point is, of course, to inspire them and get them to try to make some changes in their life. The Baal Shem Tov would come around and do the exact opposite. He would inspire them, but through positivity, through telling them the accomplishments of what they're doing and how they wish their values, sincerity, and when a Yid comes and does something, even if there's some mistakes along the way, but he's trying, and the heart, the Eibishter wants the heart. And it's about what your intentions are, and so on and so forth. But it was all done in a very quiet way, in a secret way. He appeared in the town, did his thing, and went to the next place. Sometimes it was done through sending someone else there. Sometimes he did it himself, but in a very discreet way. And then you have the day when the Baal Shem Tov finally went public. I don't mean I guess in all the sense of the word of going public, but he revealed himself, and it was also on Chai Elul, which is because it's an auspicious day, it's an important day. And this is when the Baal Shem Tov went out of hiding, and what it brought to the world was, of course, a whole new level of Chasidus, a whole new level in revealing these types of teachings and this way of of serving the Eibishter and bringing it to a much greater level. And on the same day, a bunch of years later, in English, it's 1745, Alter Rebbe was born, who founded Chasidus Chabad and took all of these great teachings and concepts of Chasidus HaKlalis and bringing it into a much more internalized manner, where we use the concept of Chabad, of understanding it and processing it and learning it from the intellectual side, and in that way connecting with it on a much deeper level. And this is also on Chai Elul. Rebbe brings another thing that happened in Chai Elul. The Rebbe moved to Lubavitch, the town of Lubavitch. Originally, it was also Chai Elul. It's an auspicious day. Say the Chaim that we should use out the day properly, gather together at a Farbrengen, saying the Chaim. It's a very rare occasion that we could sit in close, not that close proximity. It's more than Daled Ames. Daled Ames is basically 6 feet, so we're just over 6 feet from each other. But nonetheless, in the same room, and we could see each other live. Those that are watching live, say the Chaim wherever you are. But we should recognize the great schus that we have, the Ashreinu Matei Chalkeinu, that we have Chasidus and have a day like Chai Elul, and we can get together and Farbrengen. It should accomplish what it has to accomplish. L'chaim, l'chaim. Ashreinu, 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 Matei Chalkeinu. Ashreinu, Matei Chalkeinu. Ashreinu, Ashreinu, Ashreinu. Ashreinu, Ashreinu, Matei Chalkeinu. Oh, man, no, yim, geit aleinu. Oh, man, yavayirosh azeinu. Oh, man, no, yim, geit aleinu. Oh, man, yavayirosh azeinu. Man, no, yim, geit aleinu. Say no, man, no, geit aleinu. Say no, man, no, geit aleinu. Say no, man, geit aleinu. Oh, my no, yim, geit aleinu. My no, yim, geit aleinu. Yavayirosh azeinu. My no, yim, geit aleinu. Oh, my Yavayirosh The original week was not. Second one does work? How does it work? Chaim. Okay, Okay, there's a new link that is working. People are on. L'chaim, l'chaim. There was a chassid of the Rebbe Marash who once prepared wheels for the Rebbe Marash's wagon. And he really worked hard on it and spent a lot of money and got very special wheels. And he polished them and he shined them and he made sure they were, at least to paint them back then, and made sure that it was really, really the best possible and the nicest that he could get. And when he gave it to Rebbe Marash, he said, now give me a fanim and chayis hakodesh. A fanim means wheels. He said, I'm giving you wheels, these physical wheels. I want to get the spiritual wheels in the sense that I want to reach these high levels. I want to be inspired. I want to fly, as they say. But of course, the way of Chabad is not that somehow there's some type of inspiration or injection that comes from external, beyond ourselves, and we all of a sudden feel excited, inspired. It happens, but it's not something which is very lasting, and it's not the general Aveda, the way that we are supposed to serve the Eibishter. What Chasidus wants from us is that we should learn, and we should apply ourselves and understand and think about the things that we're learning and try to bring it into our davening and daven with that and work with ourselves to the extent that we become one with what we learn, and we're inspiring ourselves, not that it's completely up on our own, obviously. The Rebbe helps us and gives us the keches and the chayes and ourselves, so we obviously can't do it, but it's not automatic. It takes avodah b'kayach atzmai. We have to put in our hard work and our strength to be able to do it. And this is why this chassid wasn't going to receive a free gift of a fanim chayis hakodesh, or at least to connect metaphorically to those levels and start to feel. And as we are on a day like Chai Elul, on the birthday of Alter Rebbe, it's important to recognize that element, that component, which is in general the Aveda of Elul. The difference to this tells us between Tishrei, or the beginning of Tishrei, and Elul, is that Tishrei, there's an automatic feeling. You come to the Shul Rosh Hashanah, you get inspired. You hear the shofar, or at least the second day you hear the shofar. And the tefillah, the whole aura does something to you. And in Kippur B'chal, it's a whole different level where you feel inspired. But Elul is about the working with ourselves and trying to make some changes on our own. That's not automatic. We don't necessarily feel inspired. Of course, there's something going on. We know there's a Gimel Midas Arachamim, the 13 attributes of compassion, of mercy that are in the air, and they are impacting us. But they're impacting us in a way that we should want to go and do something on our own. But it's not that we're serious to make tshuva, and we feel that there's something about the time which is getting us to do what we have to. We have to put in our own effort, which is the Aveda of Elul, and that's really what Aveda and what Chasidus demands from us, that we should put in our own hard work and our own efforts and really work on it. Baal Shem Tov had a minig that when he sat with his Talmidim, he would have an empty bottle of mashke, completely empty, almost empty. And the reason is because anyone that looked at the Baal Shem Tov saw his aspilos, his excitement. He was so involved. One look at him and you feel like, wow, this is the way to serve the Eibishter. It's really exciting. He's loving it. He's into it. He's completely, you see that and you feel like this is the way to live, and there's no opposition internally. You want to be like that. It's contagious, that level of excitement and enthusiasm that Baal Shem Tov had for serving the Eibishter. So he put a bottle of mashke there that people should think that it's not really that he's so connected and he really gets it. It's he had a few l'chaims and somehow it got him going. And he said, or they say that Baal Shem Tov said, that they had to leave a little bechira, a little choice. Because if a person comes in and he's swept away by the Baal Shem Tov's presence and the way that he is conducting himself, that automatically you have no other desires at all, then it's not on your own. You're taken and someone's almost forcing you or flooding you with this light that you're not thinking. And then you're missing the point because you're not doing it with your efforts. You're not transforming yourself. You're not growing. So he had this to show the person that there should be some room to maybe think that it's not me, it's not Baal Shem Tov, maybe it's l'chaim that he said. But of course, we know that it was just to give us the idea of Bechira, that it's something which has to be there. But in general, it's just, Chaim is really just for show. It's not really to get excited from other things. Chasidus. The Rebbe shared the mashal about, there was a prince. It was very much the theme of Rosh Hashanah, and prince coming back home. But there was a prince who was sent away, whether his father, the king, chased him away, or he had to go to take care of something for the royal family. But he was away for a very long time. And he was hanging out with simple people, and call them peasants, people that not only did not behave royally, they had no idea what it was. They couldn't even relate to the concept. And one day he got a message, a letter, something from the king. He was very, very excited, and he wanted to celebrate this information that he has, or this connection that he has, some information that came. So he decided he's going to get up and dance. But if he starts to dance, all the people in that area where he was, they're thinking, I think he's nuts. All of a sudden, he's just dancing. Okay, so he could explain to them that the king, who is the king, and he sent me some message, and it's important and special. But they're not going to understand. So he went to the store, he bought a bottle of mashke, and he gave it to them. And they started drinking and dancing because of the mashke. And he was dancing with them, and they thought he was normal, or he thought they were crazy, whatever. But they danced together, and he was dancing because of this relationship that he has with the king, and a message that he got, and a connection, and the feeling that he had from it. And they were dancing because the alcohol does that to them. And that's the concept of why there is the idea of a l'chaim, because the nefesh habahamis is part of us, and it's there. And if the nefesh halakis starts to get really excited and inspired and really dancing around because of Yiddishkeit and a relationship with the Eibishter and so on, the nefesh habahamis kind of doesn't really go so well. So we throw something to nefesh habahamis to get him in the mode, so our whole being is dancing along. But the Rebbe says, and I don't know if anyone wants to hear this, I'll say it anyways. The Rebbe says that today we don't need the mashke at all because we have Chasidus. And with Chasidus, you have that excitement that even Nefesh habahamis come along with it. You don't have to have some kind of something in a bottle which is going to get the person to get excited. If you learn Chasidus and you live with Chasidus and you actually do it, then you get inspired, you get excited. You're, to use the term, you're on a high. You don't need some kind of bottled liquid to get you there. It's real. It's like Mendel said, that if all the Bali Taiva, I'm not sure how to translate that, people that are very into enjoying, and everything that they do is all surrounded around how they could have more enjoyment and maximize their pleasure. And he said if the Bali Taiva would get involved, at least try Avodas HaTfilah to daven, they do it forever. Because the pleasure that you could have, this is Mendel speaking, the pleasure that you could have from Avodas HaTfilah is so great that if you're into pleasure, he said, just try it and you'll get hooked. But the idea is that we don't need other stuff to get a person excited or really high. We have Chasidus, and if we do it right, it does it for us. L'chaim. Hi, let it Chaim. The concept of simcha shel mitzvah, that the person has joy from doing a mitzvah, is a story about the Alter Rebbe, who he once walked out of his room and he told his gabbai that he smells or he feels the reich of Gan Eden, the reich of Mashiach, I'm sorry. It smells, something here is the spirit of Mashiach is in the air. Please go find out who's visiting, who's here, because something is right. So he went out, and this gabbai is searching around. He's going to the shul, he's going to the Beis Medrash, to the yeshiva, and nothing is out of the ordinary. And he makes his way to the poorest neighborhood of the town, and he hears that there's a few people that are sitting around and they're having a party. He knows who they are. They're relatively simple Yidden. They're sitting, they're saying the Chaim, and they're dancing, they're singing. So he realized this is what his Rebbe is looking for. And he asked them, what's the cause of the celebration? So they said, we'll tell you, it all started a few months ago. We decided we're going to do an investment together. And it entailed saving a lot of money. We don't really have. We saved a little bit here, a little bit there. We borrowed from here, we borrowed from there. We put together enough money after many months to do this investment. I don't know, they're buying a cow or buying a goat or whatever it was. We finally had enough, and we're on our way to the marketplace to buy it. And on the way, we hear some arguing going on. Two people are a heated debate. And it was about to turn into a fist fight. So we went over, we said, what's going on? They said, well, we both decided that we're going to help this certain couple. It was a chassan and a kala, a groom and a bride. They're both orphaned, and we're going to help them get married. And I said I was going to take care of all of the expenses from the chassan side. I was going to raise it, find it, whatever it is. And he was going to take care of all the kala's needs and all of her expenses and her part, so to speak. Well, I did whatever I had to do. The wedding is supposed to be tomorrow, and he's zero. He's just like, sorry, I don't have it. And they're fighting. I said, how much is it? And he tells them the amount that they still need is exactly the same amount as they raised for their investment. So they asked for a few minutes of privacy to have a conversation. They decided, it's exactly the same amount that we're on our way. This is probably what we should do with the money. So we gave our money away to this couple, the Yusemim, to get married. Fine, we're walking back. All the excitement of the months and the anticipation is just crashing down. and whatever, we're coming back. We did a mitzvah, and that's the most important thing. But then we realized that what happened to Simcha Shal Mitzvah, what happened to the joy of the mitzvah? Is we did it, and we don't regret it, but we're not excited that we did it. So we decided we're going to make a party, and we're going to celebrate the fact that we did the mitzvah. So he told them, you should know that this is the reach of Mashiach that's being felt, because that's really what's going to be when Mashiach comes. We do mitzvahs not because it's a burden and we have no choice, and that's what Chasidus is doing, is bringing us the appreciation and the connection at a higher level, and a deeper level, that we are serving the Eibishter because that's the tachlis, that's the purpose, it's the greatest thing possible. There's a simcha involved when you learn Chasidus and apply Chasidus. Every mitzvah is not, I have no choice, what should I do? There's some kind of punishment, or the pre-Baal Shem Tov state of, if you don't do it, it's very hot over there, etc. Or punishments and so on. But for Kert, it's all about the positivity and the opportunity that we have, the schus that we have to do a mitzvah, the ability that we have to serve the Eibishter. There's a word from Chassidim, Ziknei Chassidim, and the Rebbe brings it, that Chai Elul brought and brings the Chayis in Elul. Chai Elul gives us a special excitement, enthusiasm, life into Elul. And the Rebbe discusses this word, and he says, if you think about it, Elul has a lot of different elements to it. It has some things that are happy, kings in the field, a lot of good things going on. It's a Chedesh HaRachamim, there's a lot of compassion. Halacha says that if you have a medical procedure, it's up to you, do it in the month of Elul. If you have some kind of dealings that require some extra help, whether it's a court case or whatever, Elul is a good month. There's letters from the Rebbe about buying houses, getting married, whatever. Elul is a special time. But there are also aspects of Elul which are the opposite of happiness. They're not exactly joyful. If you think about the need that we have to make a cheshbon hanefesh, we have to look at our life and try to analyze the prior year and go down memory lane. Especially, we know that Chai Elul has 12 days left to Rosh Hashanah, and every day corresponds to another month. So today we're making a cheshbon of how Tishrei was, and tomorrow cheshbon of the prior year, and so on and so forth. Every one of these 12 days, we're working on another month of the past year. And when a person starts to think about how his past year was, and he starts to really analyze his machshava dibur ma'aseh, it's not necessarily the most exciting thing. It doesn't lead to happiness necessarily, at least in most cases. There's always some room for improvement, especially when you're looking at an entire year. The Rebbe says more so. Any accountants here? The Rebbe says when you start to make an account, and you start to look at what's going on, and you're evaluating the prior year, it's not exactly the same tenuah, the same feeling of excitement and dancing. You got to concentrate, regardless of the outcome. You have to sit down, and it's a serious thing. You're looking and trying to figure out what was going on, and you're going through your thoughts and the things that you said and the things that you've done and that you should have done and shouldn't have done. It takes some seriousness. It's not joyous, especially if the outcome is not the way it should be. And who could say that the outcome is great? Even tzaddikim, the greater you are, the more exacting Hashem becomes. Right? If you hit a rock instead of talking to it, you could end up banned from Eretz Yisrael. And so you have to be careful. It's not like so. The result of cheshbon hanefesh is not joyous, says the Rebbe. And yet we say that it brings a chayis into Elul, which means everything. All aspects of Elul have a chayis. How do you have a chayis? Which, in other words, cheshbon hanefesh brings a person to some certain level of bitterness, which is not sadness. Very different from sadness, but it's not happiness. And bitterness in Elul, to say you have a chayis in the bitterness, sounds like an oxymoron. More than that, it's brought that Chai Elul is a Yom HaMiyuad. It's a designated day. I really say Chaim just for this. It's a designated day for Simcha and Bracha. So say Chaim that Everyone that needs brachas, it should be in a revealed way. Farbrengen. Everything that you ask for, we all ask for, and that we should be asking for. You should see it quickly. Chaim. Rabbi Wolf. But the idea is that it's a Yom HaMiyuad, it's a designated day for simcha and for bracha, for joy and for blessing. And we're saying that it gives chayes into the whole Elul, joyously, and the certain parts of Elul are not happy. It can't be happy. It's a difficult thing. So the Rebbe is medayik, and he says if you look closely at the order of things, simcha and bracha, it's miyud for joy and for blessing. Blessing in Chasidus is not just a blessing. Blessing is a flow. Anything that comes forth, bracha means hamshacha, things that come forth. So everything that comes forth in life starts with simcha. First the simcha, then bracha. And Chai Elul is miyud simcha and bracha. So not only do you have to have simcha, but simcha is a prerequisite. It's an intro. It comes first before everything else. So how could you say that when it comes to making a cheshbon nefesh? Cheshbon nefesh leads a person to bitterness. The Rebbe says in order to understand this, you have to understand a concept in Chasidus, which is obviously fundamental to Chai Elul, to Baal Shem Tov, and to the Alter Rebbe. And by understanding this concept, we could appreciate why you need simcha and why it's only through simcha that is in the whole Elul, and that you can only properly do Elul and everything that it represents with simcha. So let's do a Fidach Hanegin first. And then we'll, okay, Silachem B'Racha Adlida 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 Chaim. If these airplane bottles are finished, there's more. So how could you say that you have to have, or that Chai Elul brings simcha into brings a chayis, which is simcha, into Elul. There's certain parts of Elul which are not so joyous, particularly the concept of a cheshbon hanefesh, which leads a person to a certain level of bitterness, especially if he's doing it right. We say that Chai Elul is not just giving chayis, but it's a designated day for simcha and for bracha, and simcha first. In order for a person to be bitter or to really care about the results of his evaluation of the prior year, you have to care. And there's several ways how a person cares about his spiritual life. There's one way that Rebbe says that a person realizes that it's going to impact his physical. We know that everything that happens in this world has a source in spirituality. The Rebbe says it's going to impact your Bnei Chaim Mezena, person's sustenance, his health, his well-being. So he wants to make sure that his spiritual side is the way it's supposed to be. The Rebbe says it's okay, but it's not going to be very real because it's limited. It has to do with very specific things in your life, and so you're not going to care that much, or it's going to matter to you, but it has a somewhat of a very physical connotation to this whole spiritual service. And maybe you'll take it further, and you'll say, says the Rebbe, that I have a purpose in life and a mission, and I have to change or transform my sphere, myself, my family, my chelki ba'ilam, my portion in this world. Everyone has a certain something, a sphere of influence, your immediate proximity that you have to change, and you feel bad, you haven't done your job, and that's bringing you to some type of bitterness. The Rebbe says that's also very limited because it's a physical thing. So your physical space that you were supposed to change, you didn't do a good enough job. You're bitter, but it's not that bitter. The only way that could really matter, really, is if a person realizes, and this is so fundamental to Chasidus, that what you do impacts atzmus. Things that we do or don't do impacts the essence of Hashem. The Farbrengen, where the Rebbe uses the term hecher, und noch hecher, was hecher von dem is nita. It impacts higher, and even higher, which there's nothing higher than that. That when a yid does a mitzvah, it makes a difference in such a high level that there's nothing higher than that level, which is the essence of the Eibishter. And when I don't do that mitzvah, or I messed up in a certain area of machshava, dibur, ma'aseh, thought, speech, and action, then I made some kind of impact or mess up that touches atzmus. And if a person thinks about that, then that's where it's real. That's where the bitterness comes from. But who are we kidding? Who really thinks about that? And who really thinks that or realizes that I feel very bad because atzmos, something in the essence over there was didn't really touch the other wrong way, to the extent that I feel bitter. When a person says, who am I? I'm just an individual. How is it? Okay, intellectually we know that whatever we do matters, and a yid is connected to the Eibishter. We have a neshama, so what we do makes a difference in the essence of Hashem. And if we don't do it, it's not just a small thing or insignificant, but practically day to day, we look at ourselves and we think, who am I? There's even a spiritual side to who am I, because it's anova, it's humility. So it's don't really care that much. The only way that Rebbe says that a person is able to truly do the cheshbon hanefesh and truly care and realize that what he does impacts atzmos and it makes a difference in a big way is if you have simcha. The introduction to any type of tshuva, which is real, not some kind of false feeling or temporary remorse. If it's real, it has to start with simcha. Because when a person is besimcha, it's peretz all the gedarim. It breaks through any types of limitations and boundaries. And he won't say, I'm nobody, I don't matter. If you're happy, you'll realize that you do matter. Because the Eibishter says that whatever you do or don't do impacts the highest of levels. Levels that is nothing higher than that. So normally, we're not really fazed by that. But if we have simcha, says the Rebbe, if you'll really be joyous, then you'll feel it. You'll you'll appreciate the fact that it does make a difference. It does matter. And once you appreciate that it matters, then it'll bother you if there's a mess up in the prior year. So the way that Rebbe learns it is you have to have simcha in order to have merirus. You want to have that bitterness about your spiritual life and your cheshbon hanefesh of the prior year. If there's no simcha first, it's fake. So Rebbe doesn't elaborate how to have the simcha. Speaks a little bit about this beinunus that a person should contemplate, and that brings them to simcha. But when a person has the simcha, that's the only way to get to it. So when we say that Chai Elul brings a chayis in Elul, it does bring a chayis into the whole Elul, even the parts that are not joyous, because those parts, you have to have joy to do them correctly. If you don't have simcha first, which is really what Baal Shem Tov is teaching us, what Alter Rebbe is teaching us on a deeper level and helping us internalize it, intellectualizing it, and so on, you have to have simcha first. If you don't have simcha, then you don't get there. Chai. That's the Rebbe's medayik. That the Frierdiker Rebbe says simcha and bracha. You have to have simcha first. Simcha without simcha, I don't want to say those words, but simcha leads to the bracha. Chaim. Is it Chaim on those tables? Is it Chaim there? You can't share as personal bottles. I agree. Let's stay there first, then Rosh Hashanah. We hold it for Rosh Hashanah. Simcha is not. Yeah, there you go. Simcha is not Elulus though. It's real. The Rebbe says it's not really enough. The fact that you have simcha in order, or first simcha in order to be able to have a true feeling that what you do matters, and therefore when it doesn't, you're bothered by it. There's more to it. We had in Rambam just recently the end of Hilchos Lulav. Yesterday, 2 days ago. The Rambam speaks about simcha and the importance of simcha, and if you don't have a simcha shel mitzvah, in other words, there's once a yid. There's a side note. We didn't learn Chasidus. We'll use that term. And he had a question. He came into a Chasidus shul and he asked them, "I don't understand. It says that there's no reward for mitzvahs in this world. And also, mitzvahs are not given to have any enjoyment from them. It's a spiritual thing. The real reward is the other world." But he says, "I don't understand. Because when I do a mitzvah, I do have a reward. I have a certain relief. It's off my chest." To understand where this person is holding with such a question. That you tell me there's no schar. It's the biggest schar. I'm done. I finished my tefillin. I'm finished for the day. I'm free. So I'm okay. So how could he say there's no mitzvah, there's no reward? So he answered the question also, and he said that mitzvah gereres mitzvah. So there's another one coming, and therefore it's not really a reward. No, but in all seriousness, the idea of simcha shel mitzvah, or a person has simcha when he's able to serve the Eibishter, is fundamental to Chasidus. But the Rebbe shares that many areas in Nigla, the revealed parts of Torah, you can only truly understand them if you learn Chasidus. And Chasidus sheds a certain light to them, which without that, you wouldn't really understand it. For example, it says in Tanya, in the Pasuk, Le'olam Hashem Dvarcha Nitzav Hashemayim, that Hashem, his words, is constantly in the heavens. The Rebbe says, Upiresh Baal Shem Tov explained that the words that Hashem said when he created the world, they're constantly there, they're always there, they're continuing to sustain those levels of the world and so on. The Rebbe says it's not something from the Baal Shem Tov. It's a medrash. But for some reason, the medrash was either forgotten or not focused on, not spoken about. So it wasn't properly understood. The Rebbe learns in Tanya, Upiresh, he explained, Upiresh, he spread it out. That the Baal Shem Tov came and spread out this concept that for us is so fundamental and basic, that the Eibishter is sustaining the world the whole time and recreating it the whole time, and it's through words. and the words the Eibishter used when he created the world are constantly there and happening again and again. But if you don't have that teaching or explanation of Chasidus, you can't fully understand it. The same thing that Rebbe says is in this Rambam, which you just had, that you have to have that real simcha in serving the Eibishter, and without that simcha, it's not. There's different lashonos that Rambam uses. If you don't have that simcha, not so positive. But there's certain mitzvahs which are not joyous mitzvahs. A similar thing. How do you have that joy in certain levels of tshuva? The feeling is not a happy feeling. It's a remorseful feeling. It's not joyous. And the Rebbe says that there are two aspects to mitzvahs. Every mitzvah has two elements to it. You have the kavanah pratis, the detailed kavanah in the mitzvah, eating matzah, what it represents, benching lulav, what it represents. Then you have the general kavanah of the mitzvah, which is what Chasidus focuses on a lot, the general idea of what the mitzvah is. I'm serving the Eibishter. It doesn't matter what the mitzvah is. It could be matzah, it could be lulav, it could be whatever it is. I am serving Hashem, and it's a general thing. So there's a certain joy in the fact that the person is doing is tshuva. Tshuva may be a sad, maybe a bitter thing, maybe a difficult thing. It may not be joyous. But the fact that I'm able to serve the Eibishter, that's joyous. And this is the second answer that Rebbe gives. First answer is, if you don't have simcha, you'll never have meridos. That's real, because you don't really care. If you have simcha and you realize how much what you do matters, then when you don't do it, it'll bother you. And secondly is, you're able to do a mitzvah. You're able to do the concept of tshuva, and that gives you a certain simcha, a certain joy. There's a story about the Baal Shem Tov. He once came to a town, and there was some politics in the town. It's never happened, but in that town there was politics. And the argument was with the Chazan and the Rav. The Chazan, who was Chazan for many years, the Rav was complaining that when you do vidui, shamnu, alchet, and Yom Kippur, you sing, it's a happy tune, and it's killing the momentum in the shul. You know, everyone's in a certain mode of tshuva, and they're feeling all bad, and they're making some positive changes in their life, and you come along and you sing this Hashamnu. It's almost like hakafis. You take away the whole atmosphere. It's supposed to be there. Your chazan is supposed to bring in a certain mood. And the chazan is like, no, this is how I've done it for years. I'm not changing. This is how I do it. And they were arguing back and forth. When they heard that Baal Shem Tov was there, so they decided, let's go. This is a big tzaddik. He's a wise man. He was wiser than both of us. Whatever he says, we'll do. So the Baal Shem Tov takes this chazan aside, and he says, what's the deal? You're singing a lively tune by Hashamnu, by Alchet. So he said, let me tell you. The king has many ministers, prominent ministers. This was the minister of defense, and this was the minister of interior, and this was the minister of finance, and they're very important people. And they're lucky. They're high up there in the government, the royal palace. But then the king has also lower level people. Guys that take care of the maintenance of the building. They fix the palace. All the way down, you have someone that does the king's stables, cleans the horses. It's not exactly the most pleasant smell. And it's his job to make sure that the royal horses are taken care of and the stables are clean and the outhouses, etc. So let me tell you something. He tells the Baal Shem Tov. When this stable boy or this janitor cleans, he whistles and he sings and he skips from one stable to the next stable. He's overjoyed because he gets the king to clean the king's stables. He gets to clean the king's dirt, and he's overjoyed. He says, I'm standing there on Yom Kippur, and I'm able to clean the averes or the dirt or whatever it may be there from the Jewish people. I'm overjoyed. It's the biggest chus that I have that I could help them do tshuva. Not me to be sad, not me to sing some kind of very sad song. Makes no sense. Baal Shem Tov went out and he told this Rav, keep your chazan. He's doing it right. But the Rebbe says that the simcha of that exists even by tshuva, even though it's not a happy thing, is the ability to do tshuva. That gives a person happiness, that he knows he has the opportunity to do so. He could change it. And that opportunity gives him joy. The general thing, I'm serving the Eibush there, so I'm happy. Chaim. Shmuel Munkis, the famous Chassid, once came into a shul, and he saw that Rav was learning Bava Metzia, the beginning of Bava Metzia, Shnai Meiches and Betalis, and he sees that sitting and learning. So I have a question. How come it says they're both arguing over this thing they just found? First one says this thing is completely mine, and the other one says this thing is completely mine. He says, I noticed that Shomokis tells him in Hallel, we say Hashem, and then there's a small zeh which is telling you to say it a second time. How come in the Siddur you just write zeh and we know to say it twice? In Mishnayos and Gemara could have said the same thing. Zeh Aimer Kula Shali, and then Zeh. You have to say the whole thing again. Obviously, the person is arguing that the whole thing is his. So this Rav was not a fool, and he understood that this person in front of him is also not a fool. So he said, "No, what's your point?" So he said, "It's very simple. When the person is arguing about the thing that he found, and he thinks he wants to say it's his." It's not just, he says that kula shli, so I'm also saying kula shli. He's saying a totally different argument. He's saying it's not yours, it's completely mine, with a meaning, and he feels it, and it matters to him. But in davening, when it says, the second says, whatever, you gotta repeat it. Not necessarily is it with that whole meaning and feeling, so it's written that way. Should be with the meaning and feeling. But that's the unfortunate reality that tends to exist. When it comes to Simcha in Elul, and the ability to have Simcha and Tshuva, the Rebbe takes it even further. The Rebbe brings a word in the Baal Shem Tov. Why does it use a double term in regards to hiding? When a person is lost and he doesn't know that he's lost, it's worse than just being lost. It's a double darkness. You're in a dark room, it's dark. But when you don't know that it's dark, you don't know that you're off track, and it's very bad because you're going even further and further. You don't even realize it. You're not doing anything to fix that. You think that the darkness is light. You think everything's great, but really you're in a very tough situation. Unfortunately, it exists sometimes when a person is in a very deep problem. They don't even realize the extent of it because they're in it. You need someone from the outside to help them, to show them the problem. The story about Chasidus that were Farbrengen once, and they ran out of mashke. Should never happen. I only see it. And somebody said that in the cellar, if you go downstairs, there's more mashke, wine, whatever he had there. So he goes down and he says, it's dark. Oh, gosh, figure this out. Let alone finding it, I'll fall. So they told him, if you just wait a few seconds, you'll get accustomed to the darkness and you'll be able to see. Like after a few minutes, I forget which chassid it was that was sitting there, and he said, this is the problem, that after a little while you get accustomed to the darkness and you think that you could see, you think that it's light. So the Rebbe says, the Baal Shem Tov explained that the double lashon of haster astir is that it's so dark or it's so hidden, you don't even realize that it's hidden. So the simcha that a yid has when he's doing tshuva, which is not a joyous process, is that he's able to recognize that he has a problem and he's going to fix it. So in addition to the general kavanah that exists, you're doing a mitzvah, I'm serving Hashem, I'm happy, who cares what the feeling is? It's a mitzvah. And in addition to the fact that you have to have simcha, because if you have simcha, then you realize that what you do matters, and then you're bitter from the fact that you didn't do it. But the realization that I could change, I know that I'm in a situation of haster, or I'm lost, or I'm in a darkness, and I could change that. That itself brings me the simcha. And the Rebbe says that's why Elul, and why Chai Elul brings us a chayis into the whole Elul, including the tshuva part, is because the knowledge that I could do tshuva, that's the greatest joy that a yid has, the opportunity to change. And the opportunity that a yid that the Eibishter gives a yid, that we have a Chasidus of Elul, an entire month, that the Eibishter, the king, is in the field, and he's and he's happy, and he wants us to come to him, and he's accessible. This whole process of being able to do tshuva gives a yid tremendous joy. That's the simcha that we have in the tshuva itself. So it comes out from both directions. On the one hand, you need to have the simcha in order to do it. If you don't have the simcha, you can't do it. At the same time, when you do it, it leads you to simcha because you realize what you could do. So whichever way you slice it, it's a joyous process. Chaim. It's three nigunim simultaneously. Let's choose one. Harmony. Hey, There's a letter from the Rebbe, Tafshin Chav Gimel, if I'm not mistaken, I think, where the Rebbe asked the question, how come when it comes to Hanukkah there's 8 candles for the menorah, and when it comes to Pesach you have 3 matzahs and 4 cups of wine, and when it comes to Rosh Hashanah there's 1 shofar? You really want to scare everyone, or you really want to do the blast of shofar, it should be an orchestra of shofars, a group, something a little bit more impressive. You know, very often when a Yid comes to shul for the first time, they're disappointed with the shofar situation.
I know there's 1 spoon.
They're disappointed with the shofar performance. Whatever you expect, Rosh Hashanah, you come to shul, there's a whole orchestra. In certain places there maybe is an orchestra. I think they're closed this year, but they have 1 shofar. So why is it 1 shofar? It should be a lot more impressive. The Rebbe explains that it's really about that one thing. Very often when a person gets inspired, when it comes to a day like Rosh Hashanah or a Seres Meitzuvah as a whole, the person says, okay, I'm going to now change my entire life, and from A to Z, starting now. Usually we say starting tomorrow. No. But tomorrow. And there's a whole list of stuff that we're going to do. The Rebbe is complaining. And he says that Rosh Hashanah happened, Yom Kippur happened, and not much changed in many areas. Because we spoke about ideas and big things and inspirations and stuff. And what happens is a person has all these great ideas and he decides to do a million different things, and it's too much and he ends up with nothing. Or he suffices with feeling that I felt spiritual, I felt inspired, it was all good. What you have to do is that 1 shofar. You have to find that one thing. And it's maybe not be so impressive, it's just one thing. What a big deal. It's not transformational. It's not turning over my whole life. It's 1 increase, 1 small idea that I changed, that I improved, that I did differently. But it's practical and it's real. And the Rebbe says we don't fool ourselves and saying, it's, so many things and it becomes so different. But that one thing is measurable. And you could look back and say, did I do it or did I not do it? And it's tangible. You end up keeping to it. And this is the concept brought in Sfarim, and the Rebbeim did it. Every year, Rosh Hashanah, they would take on a new Hiddur. It sounds like a big deal. A Hiddur. Of course, it's a big deal. But really, Rosh Hashanah, a new year, we should take upon ourselves, hundreds of new achlatas and many beautiful things, and a whole different world we should do. But that's not what matters, and it's not really what lasts. What lasts is that one small thing. It's small, but you can look back and actually stick to it. And when you take small achlatas, very measurable things, and try to improve them, it's not so exciting, but you'll end up keeping them. And as we get closer to Rosh Hashanah, we should, if the Rabbeim could do it, we should also definitely do it. You have to do it. Come to Rosh Hashanah, come to the new year with something small, but it's an increase. It's better, it's different, it's more than before. We should do it, and it should last. It's one of the easy things the easy mistakes to make when a person says, "Oh, I'm going to change the world. I'm not going to worry about the small problems, little things. Let's do something, something very big." But usually end up with nothing. It's like going up the entire staircase in one shot. You can take one step, maybe 2 steps at a time. But if you're going to try the whole thing, even though you really want to go up, you'll end up where you started, if not lower. So part of the Cheshbon HaNefesh is not just the past, but it's the future. And it's looking and making some practical changes. And even though the results may be that there's a lot of changes that have to happen, and you should work on all the changes. But as the Shana Chadasha, the New Year Achlata, the New Year thing, it's okay if it's something small, but it should be there. There's a bacher, I shared this recently, there's a bacher in San 70 who wasn't exactly the most studious. And by his birthday Chasidus, he told the Rebbe that whatever, yeshiva is not really working for me. I'm not learning much, I'm not doing much, I'm wasting my time. And anytime there was anything that had to be done, you needed a volunteer or someone to help organize something, he was the one that was first in line to leave his sefer. And in the moment of truth, he told the Rebbe that, what should I do? The Rebbe gave him a very interesting answer. The Rebbe said you should take 5 minutes and learn, but not more than 5 minutes. When you master that, you can increase it to 6, to 10, whatever number he gave him. Okay, so he sat down and he learned for 5 minutes, Chumash, Rashi, Gemara, whatever it was. And he got into it because it's only 5 minutes. But then the 5 minutes were up. So he wanted to just finish that small piece he started, get to the answer of the question. But the Rebbe said, so he closed it. But he couldn't wait till tomorrow to his 5 minutes. And very quickly it increased to 10 and 15 and 20. And it's the same Nakuda. You took something that's measurable, not you better start learning today, entire Seder or else. Sometimes in extreme cases, you have to go in that way. But in general, as we look at the new year, we should not be enticed by that Tzasa Yetzer, the Yitzhar that comes and says, it's you're bigger than that. Take something huge. Do the whole thing today. Do something small. It's Kedai. This way it's going to last. Hi. Rebbe tells us that the Yitzhar comes in many different forms. And it likes to come. It's more, sometimes it's some certain people, probably present company. If you come with a spiritual excuse, it works. If you come with some kind of materialistic or animalistic type of persuasion, it doesn't go. What do you mean? This is you can tell right away that it's wrong. So the Yitzhar dresses up in all different garments, and it looks very pious and very holy, and it's easy to make the mistake and go for it. And one of the ways is it tells you, Rosh Hashanah, do something big. It's not here to convince you to do big. It's here to make sure you do nothing or less than before. And you have to be aware of it, to know that that's how it comes, and not to fall for those tricks. what Chassidim used to wish one another, the Farbrengen, that so mechaven sein to the kavanah, we should have the right intention to get it right. Because sometimes you mean well, you mean well, you're not looking for excuses, you're not looking to get out of it. You want to do it the right way, but for whatever reason, you fall into that trap. It's easy to do. Which is why the Rebbe tells us the importance of having a Seder Charav. You have someone that's not you. They don't have to be smarter than you. They don't have to be greater than you. They just have to be not you. A few other qualifications. But they're not you. And they can be objective. And they don't lose sight of what you're really supposed to be accomplishing and the way you're supposed to be behaving. And they don't have that problem of avas atzmai, that every person loves themselves. At least we should. And by going to this mashpia of yours, this mentor, this Haseder Charav, and asking them to help you, it helps you not to fall in to the trap of not recognizing, put it lightly, of what's the Yetzer Hara and what's the Nefesh of the Kiss, what's the Nefesh HaBahamis. And it's not something which you speak to him once a year before your birthday and you say, oh, what should my achlata be? It's something which he's your, for lack of a better term, he's your coach in serving the Eibishter. That's the way that Rebbe wants it. That a chassid should have someone that he respects, that he goes to, and this person helps him and makes sure that he's maximizing in his Avodas Hashem. He's davening the way he's supposed to, he's learning the way he's supposed to, he's doing the real deal. He's not getting lost in good ideas and things that are designed just to get him off track or convincing himself and so on. You go to the other person and you ask him to help you, to guide you. This is we're reading about this recently. This is the idea of Chasidus, even from the earliest of generations. Alter Rebbe in Akdam of Tanya writes about it. If you don't understand what it says in Tanya, go to the go to those in your city, the elders, those who understand, they'll help you. You're not meant to do this on your own. It's not, it's Taka Emmanuel, and everyone has the direct connection to the Rebbe, and everyone has to do what they have to do. There's no big or small, but you need someone that's not you to help you to do it right. And if someone's not in touch with them, they should get in touch with them. Sometimes we have someone in yeshiva, and then that's the extent it stays with that. But it's a very fundamental thing in a way of Chasidus, of taking hadracha and guidance and actually speaking to somebody. It's one of the things that the Rebbe says Bakasha Nafshis about, that he's really asking you to do it. Don't think you can do it. You can do this, navigate this life thing on your own. Chaim, you should actually do it. Chaim, Chaim. All the social distance, everyone's social distancing, but those that are very distant say the Chaim. Chaim, Chaim. There's more individual Farbrengen and Ashke. Chaim, Chaim. There's a word in the Alter Rebbe, Atem Nitzav Mayem Kulchem. We know the famous explanation that all of you are standing, which is this week's Parsha, Tzavim Vayelech, in front of the Eibishter, Roshechem, Shiftechem. He brings out there 10 different levels of people. There's Roshechem, Shiftechem, you have the heads, and you have various different types of people, all the way to the wood choppers and the water drawers. And all of these are coming in front of the Eibishter, and Chasidus tells us that it's not just Hayom. Hayom represents Rosh Hashanah, that on this day there's a certain awakening and really an elevation of the spark, the inner part of the neshama comes and connects to Hashem. And Chasidus elaborates that there's a unity that happens during this time. It's not just automatically on its own, but there's a certain unity between all of these 10 levels, or the 10 people, types of people that it represents. They're all united as one unit, united as one body. But before we talk about the level of unity, what it is and what it's not, Alter Rebbe says that you're talking about such a low level. Chaytev Eitzecha, he says, are people that have to be chaytev, they have to chop. Chaytev Eitzecha means chopping wood choppers. Chaytev is chopping, Eitzecha is your trees, your wood. Chaytev Eitzecha means that you have to chop away, meaning break down. Eitzecha is not just, says Alter Rebbe, your trees, your wood, but your eitzes. There's these eitzes, these ideas that come from the Yetzer Hara. He comes up with all these types of advice and good ideas. For example, let's take some big achotas and big stuff to do. And what he's referring to there is not even when he's trying to clothe it in something spiritual, but the Yetzer Hara comes with good ideas, not good ideas, rather. Advice and other things. The person is on that level that he's struggling with that. He has to knock away that advice from the Yetzer Hara. It's a struggle, it's a challenge. That's the Chayte V'Tzechel level. Alter Rebbe says, Shoyev Meimecha, which is a water drawer. Mayim, as is brought in Tanya, is the source, or that brings about, that causes the sprouting of all pleasures. So Shoyev Meimecha means a person has to draw out, meaning get rid of all the pleasures of his life. Not that there's something wrong with pleasure, but if that's his drive and that's what's pushing him, and that's his life is about enjoyment and pleasure, and that's everything surrounds that, and how could I have more of it, and how could I enjoy myself more and have a better time, and so on. He has to draw out that pleasure, that pleasure seeking, that need, that it's a more common term is a Baal Taiva. So he has to work on himself a little bit and not to be driven by what he enjoys or having a good time. So even such people that are struggling with that level of materialism, or struggling with that level of Chayte V'Tzechel, they have to knock away the eitzes of the Yetzer Hara. Even such people are required, they are part of this unit. What's this unit? It's a body. It's a body of the Yidden. And just like in a body, you have a head, which is the top, and it's the nerve center, and it controls everything. Similarly, you have a Rebbe among the Yidden, Moshe Rabbeinu, that everything in the body goes through there. The Rebbe, and through the Rebbe comes the chayis, the sustenance, the life, the vitality of the entire generation. Doesn't matter what level the person's at. But the body needs the feet. But not just because in order to get somewhere you need feet, because the head wants to go, but it can't go, so you need feet to take you there. It's more than that. When there's a problem with the head, there's an old remedy apparently to take out blood from the feet. So it's not just externally that in order for the head to arrive somewhere, you need to get rid of something. Yeah, you need the feet to bring it there. So that you see that every part of the body is necessary. And the head needs everybody. Or the head benefits from everybody. He can reach his destination thanks to the feet. So whatever the feet represent, the head, the Rebbe could reach wherever he has to reach. Moshe Rabbeinu could accomplish whatever he has to accomplish. It's more. That's an external level. Internally means that when the ache or the ailment in the head is there, the way that we can get rid of it is through the foot. So it's not just they're a lower level, but they matter because toes are important too. But they are there and they're able to fix something in the head. So when we come to a parsha, which is always read before Rosh Hashanah, Tzavim Vayelech, Tzavim, this year it's Tzavim Vayelech together, we have this concept of unity, where all levels of Yidden, and there are low levels. This is what the Baal Shem Tov was accomplishing in such great detail, was this ava, this special love and real care for simple Yidden, to the extent that his other disciples, Baal Shem Tov had 60 disciples, his Talmidim, the very close Talmidim, they had issues with it. Issues, not the right word, but they struggled with this concept that some simple guy rolls in. We're sitting here and we're really working on our Aveda and learning deep concepts and davening, and Baal Shem Tov is showing them what's going on in the Maila and so on and so forth. And some simple guy goes in, and all of a sudden he's sitting next to the Baal Shem Tov and he's getting from his wine, and it's like, what's happening? It was a struggle. It wasn't a simple thing. It was a big chidush. It was a big novelty and a new concept of this attention and valuing a simple yid just because he's a yid. But you find this throughout Chasidus. And it's, in this particular mimer, when it comes to Tafshon Chafei, but some Yelech, whatever brings from the Alter Rebbe, that the Sheyev Meimecha is vital for not just for the head externally, but for his well-being, for his almost peace of mind. It's every aspect is needed. So, of course, there's the element of achdus, and we have to value every yid, and we have to know we have to care for another yid, and make sure that every yid has everything they need. Have friends, care about your friends. Don't only have friends that you benefit from, that it's so great, but even people that need your help, be there for them. I can say the story, Chasidus of Farbrengen. Rabbi Baal Shem Tov was once by the Rebbe, in Chasidus. Rebbe asked him about a certain person who was living in Philadelphia, how he's doing. This was a person who, last name was Schachter. How he's doing, whatever. And he told the Rebbe that he's his friend and he's close, whatever. He said, yeah, for sure, I'm in touch with him, he's my friend. A little while later in the conversation, or another Yechidus, Rebbe asked him, how is this guy doing with Parnasa? He said, I don't know. What kind of friend are you? You call that a friend and you don't know if he has a problem with his Parnasa? If he's your friend, you find out, you care, it matters to you. You make it your business to find out. You ask the right questions, you find out. So the idea of the unity between Yidden, of course, for Rosh Hashanah, it's achdus, you have to care for one another, and it's important preparation, it's part of coming to Rosh Hashanah, and so on and so forth. But it's more than that. It's appreciating the other Yid. It's realizing that whatever level you're at, it's what the Baal Shem Tov taught us, that the sincerity of another Yid, and sometimes the simplicity of the simple Yid, is so valuable that the Reish gets helped because of it. There are many, many stories of the Baal Shem Tov where there was a kitrug l'mayla or something wasn't working out, and with all the tefillas and all the talmidim and all the kavanas, everything was going on. They were going to the mikveh and they were davening at certain hours and they were fasting and saying Tehillim, and truly high levels. They weren't fooling themselves. They weren't somehow off the mark. But then a simple Yid rolls in and he says a bracha, or he asked a question in the right way, and it changed the whole order of things. All of a sudden, everything works out. Why? It wasn't, let's give them attention so they shouldn't feel bad. It was the Baal Shem Tov recognizing what they have. We have to look at another Yid the same way. Forget that there's differences and we shouldn't focus on those things. We should focus on the things that unite us. Forget that there are, levels and so on and so forth, and overcome them and have obviously. So anyways, appreciate that you're lacking without them. That as great as you are, it's the simple Yid that's bringing and giving to you. The whole world is created, and the whole Seder Ishtalshlus works in a process of Eres and Kalim. There's a giver and a receiver in every level and every aspect. Mashpia and a Mekabel. And without that, it doesn't work. And the Mekabel is giving to the Mashpia more than he realizes. Mashiach comes, he realizes it even more. As Chazal tell us when it comes to tzedakah, that more than the balabayis, more than the giver is doing to the receiver, wealthy man that's giving the poor man whatever he needs, the poor man is helping the rich man even more by making it possible to give. So Baal Shem Tov valuing and showing attention and teaching us the preciousness of a simple Yid is not just that you should be nice to them and have Avos Yisrael. It's way more than that. It's that we should know that we're lacking without them. The head needs the foot. That's the preparation for Rosh Hashanah. That's the Tzav Mayim Kulchan. Whatever level, there are many levels, and some people tend to point out who's on which level. But Chaim. Siva Magazimateva Lishanateva Umisuka Siva Magazimateva Lishanateva Umisuka Siva Magazimateva Lishanateva Umisuka Siva Magazimateva Vishana Teva Omisuka Aksiva Lazima Teva Vishana Teva Siva Lazima Teva Vishana Teva Aksiva Lazima Teva Vishana Teva Omisuka Ali, hi. Teva Shana Teva Siva Magazima Teva Shana Teva Siva Magazima Teva Shana Teva Siva Magazima Teva Shana Teva Siva Magazimateva Mishanateva Omisuka Chaim Magazimateva Siva Magazimateva Mishanateva Siva Magazimateva Mishanateva Omisuka Siva Magazimateva Mishanateva Siva Magazimateva. We said it before, we could say it again. Auspicious day, which is Miyuat for Simcha and Bracha. Say the Chaim for many brachas, everything that they need. Start with Gesund. All those needed for Shlema should have it quickly and completely. Yishar Shum Reishim should be Teva Nero Nigla. All the other aspects of Bnei Chaim is in Revicha, Kulam Revicha. It's Nachas, joy from children, Chasidus and Nachas. It's Parnasa, and it's Shalom Bayis, and all the areas, Shidduchim, everything that we daven for and need and ask for should be quickly and then in a revealed way. Chaim. There's a Chasid who came to the Alter Rebbe and he told him that your Chassidim are fakers. Well, the word that he used was they're tzvuyim, they're colored. Whatever, it's just a fake, it's a facade. You meet them, you think they're all spiritual, they're davening, whatever, they don't daven. They daven, obviously, say the words, but you could think that somehow they're on this high level, they're davening for hours, they learn Chasidus before they daven, they're going to the mikvah, but they're not at that level, they're not really at that. So it's unimpressed. I Rebbe told him two answers. First of all, if you do something, even if it's not for the right reasons, it'll come. Eventually, it'll get to the real deal. So even if they do it because they want to fit in, or they do it because everyone's doing it, or maybe some other external factor. But even if it's not so real, it's not so sincere, they're not on that level, it's okay because it'll get to that. But secondly, the Rebbe told them that there's a Gemara which says that if a person fakes that they are a limp, they're walking around and they're faking that they have a certain ailment, and they're asking people for Rahmanas, they're asking them for compassion, support, whatever it is. The Gemara says this person will not die until they actually have that ailment. If they fake it, they're going to end up that way. Well, it continues. Someone that walks around and says that he is poor, walks around with a piece of cardboard, and it says that he needs money, he has no money. If he's going to fake it, if it's not real, in the end it'll be real. It's just the way it works. Whatever tells this person, you should know, if the Chassidim are faking it, in the end it'll become real. It's okay. Let them say they're davening, but they don't really mean it. Let them say that they're not lying about it. They're just not at that level. So we'll get to that level. So as much as we're focusing on MS and the importance of doing things sincerely and meaning it, at the same time, don't let the Yetzer Hara tell you that I'm not at that level. Who am I to daven bariches? Daven up and say the words and that's it. Became a big chassid overnight. Now this whole davening b'aveda. It's okay. If you don't mean it, you'll get there. The sincere part will come. Fake it till you make it. It's a real thing. It's something which was the answer that the Alter Rebbe gave them. In a similar vein, somebody came to the Rebbe and he said that he's giving tzedakah, but he doesn't really mean it. It's not, his kavanah is not real. He likes the covet. He's getting certain recognition for it. Maybe that's why he's doing it. Also, it feels really good to give. It's time to transform myself. It's time to actually mean it. So that stuff is not real. I don't mean it. So the Rebbe told him, but the poor person, he means it. It's very real to them. The recipient, that's real. Sometimes getting lost and saying, I want to feel it, or I want to have that level where it's sincere, could be a reason, an excuse to try to get us not to do it. So as we strive to do things in a primistic way, which is really what Alter Rebbe is bringing us, is Chabad, as you mentioned, about you learn it, and you understand it, and you internalize it, because when you understand something, it becomes part of you, and you process it differently. It's not just an inspiration or an excitement or something which is on a midas level. It's an emotional thing, but it's not intellectual, it's deeper. At the same time, we can't wait until everything is in place in order to do it. You have to just do. As the Chinuch says, the heart follows the actions. A person acts very kind. It does something to you when you start being kind. You force yourself in the beginning, you just do it, but in the end, there's a feeling involved in it. Works the other way also, unfortunately. Sometimes a person does something a lot, and it becomes habit, they don't think about it twice. But that's the challenge with kavanah and so on. Mitzvah Hashem Milumada becomes habit and routine. But what we're focusing on here is very often a person says, I don't mean it, so why should I do it? The whole point is to strive, it should be real. How much did Chassidim do everything they could to have a little emes in their Aveda, and it should be real, and it shouldn't, But at the same time, you could use that as an excuse not to do. And we have to know that when you do something, the Rebbe says this many times in many letters, the hearts follow actions. So we have the when we do it, we'll start to feel it. It will come. When it comes to a month of Elul, we're making a cheshbon nefesh, and we're thinking what we could do differently, what we need to do differently. And we're focusing or zeroing in on one new thing for the new year, or one new change. Don't wait till you're on that level. Just do it. Chaim. There's one phrase or one thing that Rebbe says so often by Farbrengen, the action is the main thing. There are many levels, many different things that we have to achieve, but action is what counts. The main thing is the Maisa. It's the real deal. Chaim. Chaim, all those that are watching on YouTube and Facebook, Chaim. You say Chaim on water, I'm doing it.
What's your age now?
It's
It's getting
more.
close. What? This is water, and this is mashke. There's both. Listen, you can only have 4 l'chaims till you're 40. Not mashke. The rest is water.
He's in his 40th.
My birthday was the other day.
Happy birthday.
And some things we don't have to be so machmir. Be so machmir on this thing. Be machmir and everything.
Days up? Long time ago.
I just video today.
Chaim, should be yourself as lach al-bashas beruchnis. The bayim the bina.
Oh man.
This mixed up and here.
Met die hebben ze dingen. It's not going. Measure it, sich lops, что есть нами будет, не поедем на кожанки, нами водка будет. Measure it, sich lops, что есть нами будет, на кожанки, нами водка будет. Ай-яй-яй-яй, ай-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй, ай-яй-яй-яй, ай-яй-яй-яй. Ay, 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 Chaim, Chaim. Chai Elul is also the yard site of my Alter Rebbe. So it's like, I don't know. Chaim. He was a Talmud in the Lubavitch. Had a serious nefesh. He was arrested, was, sent away for multiple years for his crime of raising a Chasidus family and being involved in spreading Yiddishkeit. Chaim. One of the things that Rebbe speaks about, how when a person makes a cheshbon nefesh, it leads him to a certain bitterness. The reality is, the Gemara in Baba Basra says, Kuf Samachem with Aleph, that a person, the top of
He's ready to say 4 times.
the top of the Aleph, that Avak Lashon Hara is something which nobody escapes that. Everyone messes up in
That's how we know he's a
Avak Lashon Hara. Lashon Hara is speaking negative about another person, right? Alter Rebbe equates it to Gilei Arayish, Chazdamim, Avodah Zara. It's compared to the big three, speaking bad about someone else. But then there is another level, which is Avak Lashon Hara. It's a cousin of Lashon Hara. And he didn't really speak bad, but there are other things that go into that category. That level, no one escapes that. Gemara, maybe the Gemara didn't know about some of the people here, but I'm sure it did. No one escapes that kind of Lashon Hara. There's a story being recorded and it's live and so on, so I'm going to skip the name. There was a Yid who wrote a sefer about Lashon Hara. And many things about how wrong it is, how bad it is, and so on. And he sent messengers, some of his Talmidim, all over the region, Russia and beyond, to try to get haskamas, approbations, endorsements for his sefer. And they would come to a city, meet the Rav, show him the book, he would read it, and then he would write. If he liked it, he would write, I approve, I encourage, great book, great work, whatever. They came to Lubavitch. They came to the Rebbe Rashab. And they brought him the Sefer. They got a meeting. And they asked him, in the name of the author, if he could write a haskama. Chaim. I recognize you even with a mask. Chaim. Vaisa Gela. Hand sanitizer. Well, we have it all. So the Rebbe Rashab told them, I cannot give you a haskama. I can't give you a letter of endorsement for 2 reasons. First of all, I don't give haskamas. It's not my thing. I don't write endorsements for books. And secondly, I look through the book and he speaks about all the different types of Lashon Hara. There's one type that's missing. I think that itself is a pretty good haskama. There's only one missing. He didn't say only, but there's a certain type of Lashon Hara, speaking negative about someone else, where you don't say anything, but you kind of you crimp with the nose, you say in Yiddish. You twist with your nose a little bit, you make a face. You didn't say anything. But that twist with your face, that does it. Okay. They didn't get an haskama. They went about their journey, many other stops. When they finally came back, they were giving him a report of all the cities they went to and all the rabbis and a stack of haskamas. He was very interested. What happened in Lubavitch? He said, no, we're sorry, but he didn't give a haskama. Why? He gave us 2 reasons. The second reason we don't remember, but the first reason was that he doesn't do these things, doesn't give endorsements. So he went like this. Yeah, now you remember the second reason. You said you're missing one of these. The reality is, as the Gemara says, no one gets saved from it. People make a mistake. There is no one's saved from this. I'm not blaming anybody. It's a fact, the reality of life. And this the Rebbe says, the Rebbe doesn't say the story obviously, but he says that the Gemara, that as a result, when you realize where you're at, it leads to a certain level of bitterness. How could you have simcha and bitterness together? So that what brings the Zayar, that we could have a duality. That chedva tkiya b'libay misitra da, and first b'chia tkiya b'libay misitra da, and chedva tkiya b'libay misitra da. On one side of you, you have crying, and the other side of you, you have happy. First we say, there's a Yitzhak Tevin, there's a Hara, there's Nefesh Hamas, Nefesh Alikis, there's an animal soul and a godly soul. So there are two different emotions going on. But the Rebbe doesn't suffice with it. The Rebbe says that doesn't work because you're one person. So you can have rooted two different emotions, but most people, at the very same time, you don't have two emotions. Okay, Chasidus tells us it's there, it's true, but and that's what we're discussing. The three different ways how you have simcha and tshuva at the same time. One is you need simcha because that's the entryway to anything. You don't care about what you've done or didn't do if you're not happy. Because when you're happy, you realize that you matter and what you do makes a difference. And if you don't have that simcha, then frankly, what I do that doesn't matter. It makes no difference what I did. I'm nobody. And simcha allows the person to feel that he's a yid with an neshama, with a purpose, and what he does reaches atzmos u'mehus, the highest of levels. And the simcha brings them to that realization, and now he cares. And now it bothers him that he didn't do it. So this is one of the fundamental aspects of Chasidus, and Baal Shem Tov, and even more from Alter Rebbe, is simcha. In the early years, we weren't called Chasidim, which, by the way, the name Chasidim, we didn't invent it. It's actually given by those that were questioning the ways of Chasidus, the opposers to Chasidus, the opponents to Chasidus. But before we were called Chasidim, we were called the Freiliche.
You didn't refuse to get it.
Huh?
You didn't refuse to take that. No?
It's accurate. The happy ones, the joyous ones, because if you looked at a chassid, that's what he was. He was happy. Like a group of guys that are like, whatever. Group of people that are joyous. Thank you. That is what a chassid is about. He's happy. He's joyous. That's the mark. And even in the areas of Avodas Hashem, which, according to the description, there's sadness or bitterness involved. There's machzorim that it says kan tzarich livkos or kan nochin. Over here, you should cry a little bit. It works for the process of the tshuva. Here, you should cry. It's fake. You want a meaningful Yom Kippur? Cry a little bit. Even the areas where Torah says that there's certain remorse, certain not sadness is not sadness, but bitterness. Chassidus says, you still need simcha there. Serving Hashem, you're happy. What do you mean? How could you not be happy? You're dancing your way. There's a chassid who was crying. The Frierdiker talks about it. He was crying by slichus a lot. He was relatively a simple chassid as far as his knowledge and chassidus. So they asked him, listen, what are you crying about exactly? Slichus, what's... He said, I'm not crying about what I did. I'm washing away the dirt. It's a different attitude. It's a motivating, it's a positive tnuah, positive movement. That's the way Chasidus looks at Elul. That's the way Chasidus looks at Tshuva. There are other schools of thought which are very, very different. They're even opposite, which is pre-Baal Shem Tov. Talk about the negativity and the punishments and how terrible it is, and this is your last chance. And there are some sources for it. It's not the way of Chasidus, it's not the way of Baal Shem Tov. First of all, it's not as effective. It's just a side note. But it's not correct, because the the value that a Yid has in serving the Eibishter and the ability that we have is so strong, we should be jumping from joy, dancing. Yitzchak Barditchev, when he would say brachas in the morning, he would start to dance by Shalei Asani Goy. Such a dance that they had to literally hold him because he was beyond thrilled. Look, I did nothing to deserve this. Just it came about. I'm so happy. And this is how a Yid has to start his day every single day. Chazal, Anshe Knesset like that were misakin. They enacted. Every single day we say, Ashreinu Matev Chalkeinu Anem Geraleinu. Right? Because you have to start your day with appreciating that ability. What's the idea of Yerusha? Yerusha, a person inherits something. He's happy because he got something which he didn't do anything for. He didn't deserve it. He didn't earn it. It just landed. And it doesn't matter. This son could be ignorant. He could be rebellious. He could be good. He could be bad. It makes no difference. He got it by inheritance. And it's his. That's the type of relationship that the Eibishter has with Yidden. The Eibishter gave us Torah and mitzvahs and an opportunity. And it's supposed to give us such a simcha, such a joy, just thinking about it, that everything else works. Everything else flows from that. It's simcha and bracha. Simcha is the intro to bracha. All brachas come after the simcha. But sometimes a person doesn't feel it. Once in a while. So it requires isbeinanus. So there's demands that a person should contemplate. The whole davening is really about that. Where a person thinks at the beginning of davening. You reflect and you think. You focus on the greatness of the Eibishter and good things that happen to you, and realizing and appreciating the brachas and the great things in life and the good things that happen and focusing on them. Doesn't mean that everything's perfect, but you zero in on the good. You focus on the positive. Focus on the positive. And when a Yid appreciates the brachas and the good things that happen, it leads into joy. And when there's joy, everything else flows from there. Chaim, we don't need mashke for it, we need simcha.
My good man.
Miller
I haven't
invited
had
Rebbe in the
email
last
from you
24
for
hours.
8 months. Chalukas Hashas, what happened?
You're not on the list?
Maybe
Every week. Thursday, 9:30.
you took me off.
You have the email. Get the email. You got off.
I didn't get off. I'm
You have to
learning.
qualify somehow. I don't know.
You took me off.
I'll check. I'll bring you back on.
Hi,
Knock it off.
keep up the good work. You got an email from him?
I do. Hey,
Related to writer, you know that?
Really?
Yeah, they're Slavs, and